First of all, I'd like to thank everyone that has tuned in for post-production tips using iMovie, featuring Allison Falk. And just to highlight that this is a program associated with Fast Film Fest 2021. Fast Film Fest is a production put on by the Robert C. Williams Museum of Papermaking, Georgia Tech Libraries, and ASIFA South, which is an international animation society. Fast Film Fest is original animated films, 5 seconds to 5 minutes long. Their primary material is paper because we're the paper museum. It's free for anyone to participate and no prior experience is necessary. And we share the videos via screening and online via our YouTube channel. So this is a 5-second bumper just to give you an idea of how long the shortest film can be. Our theme for 2021 is Community, the World as We Know It. And I'll introduce Allison. Are you guys seeing Allison's picture?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Allison Volk is the instructional coordinator and multimedia librarian for the Georgia Tech Library, a position held since 2010. She studied art at the University of Georgia and holds a BBA in Computer Information Systems from Georgia State University and a master's in Library and Information Studies from Florida State University. She teaches approximately 100 workshops a year on professional multimedia software, including tools for video and audio editing and graphic design. In 2016, she became the program manager for the Georgia Tech Library's instruction program and service owner for the library's Media Scholarship Commons. As instructional coordinator, she oversees the development of the library's educational curriculum. She leads numerous specialized educational programs, including a Federal Institution for Museum and Library Services grant funded program that integrates arts-based projects and library resources into the curriculum. She also teaches LMC 4699, a computational media research section focused on virtual reality for teaching and learning. I will say this is our 3rd year of Fast Film Fest, and Allison has been with this program since its inception. She helped me come up with the idea. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Allison Volk.
Hey everyone, and I'm so glad you were able to make it tonight. As Jerusha was saying, we're really excited about the Fast Film Festival, and we hope that maybe some of this programming will inspire you to participate and see how easy it is to make stop motion films utilizing iMovie. So with that said, I will get started. What I'm going to do tonight is I am going to kind of go through first just a recap for those of you who maybe are not familiar with iMovie or the Mac environment, and kind of go through the interface and sort of just the general workflow. And then I'm going to go through and sort of show you how to create stop motion films with a sequence of photographs. And then we'll maybe play around with them and see how we can leverage green screen to create custom backgrounds and possibly do some overlays. I've also got a couple of iMovie hacks for you utilizing Keynote, how you can create green screen effects with a simple platform such as animations in Keynote, and how that can be integrated into iMovie. So if you didn't get the email that I sent out earlier today, if you don't have, files to work with tonight, no problem. You can just sit and listen. But you're also welcome to go to the link that I put in the chat And if you want to download that folder of assets to your own computer, if you'd like to try some of this, I think what I might do is take some strategic pauses through the session and sort of let you try some of this, like sort of take a moment and have you work with it if you have iMovie installed on your computer. Did most of you have maybe just indication in the chat, or you can unmute yourself? Does everybody here have access to iMovie, or were you wanting to try some of the hands-on exercises? Great. And it's fine if you don't have iMovie. I just thought that if you do, you can certainly like try some of this stuff. Yeah, and there's an app for it on the phone too. Tori mentioned that you can get iMovie on your phone as well. I find the desktop's a little bit easier to navigate, but yeah, you can also do stuff on your phone. All right, so I'm going to start sharing my screen in just a moment. So this was a project that I had in progress that I was kind of playing around with and sort of experimenting with different green screen techniques, but I'm going to use it to sort of just give you a quick overview of the interface and what you're looking at. So this will be sort of a recap, maybe review for some of you folks who are already familiar with iMovie. But iMovie is Mac-only software. It comes usually when you have a Mac, you'll often get iMovie installed with it. And iMovie has three windows. You have this upper window on the upper left-hand side, and this is where all your media assets go. So any footage or pictures or sound files or any of that will end up in that upper left-hand corner. So here you can see when I was playing around with some of the stop motion, when I was taking pictures for the stop motion, I put all my still images here in the media library. And there's also a place for audio. Your audio files will be there. And you also have other assets such as transitions, which is essentially just the glue between clips. If you don't want like the transition between the clips to be abrupt, you can put some transitions in there to kind of glue the clips together. We got backgrounds, don't really use those too much. And then they have some pre-made titles for text, which you can use. But I'm also going to show you how you can make your own with some special effects. All right, so basically when you gather all your assets, so say you're participating in the Fast Film Festival and you're taking all your still images or you've got some video footage, you're going to transfer it here to that upper left-hand corner where all your raw footage will go. And you may or may not use all of it, but that's okay. It's basically a library for what you might need. Down here in the bottom of the screen, we've basically got our timeline. And this is where our final kind of edited project goes. And so as you're using some of these resources, basically the workflow is going to be, you're going to drag these items from the upper left-hand corner down into the timeline as you need them. So here you can kind of see, I was using let's see if I can mute this for right now. So basically what I was doing was I was using like this still image of this forest, and so I dragged it down into the timeline. And so all you have to do is simply like click on a picture and drag it down into the timeline. Up here in the upper right-hand corner, this is our preview screen. It doubles as a preview screen, and it also, you can do some editing from this window as well. So right now, our scrubber bar, this is known as the scrubber bar right here, that yellow line that's going down through the timeline, that's indicating where in the film we are at the moment, or which frame that it's on. And so basically the preview screen in the upper right-hand corner is previewing the frame that we're on. And, if we were wanting to apply some edits to this area, we could also enable some of these icons on the top of the screen to edit it. So for instance, if for whatever reason I wanted to change the speed on this particular clip, I could click on it, come up here, and click on this icon here, which is sort of like this kind of speedometer here, and change our little drop down menu, and we can change the speed of the clip. So keep that in mind when you're working with this upper right hand corner. Not only is it a preview window, but it's also a little editing window, and we'll go through some of these edits here a little bit later. Let's see. Okay, so that is just kind of a brief overview of the workflow. The way that you bring new footage into iMovie is simply you just start by going into your import media. So if you have media that where you want to start a new project, first you start a new project, and why don't I do that before I go over here? This is usually like your first window, and when you're starting a new project, you'll just kind of click here where you have a new movie. And you can see it's preserved some of my assets from before. But if I wanted to bring in more media, I could just go to the import media option and bring in any additional assets like sound files or video or photographs or what have you. But that's, in a nutshell, that is the basic workflow. You bring in your assets, you drag and drop clips down here into the timeline where you can manipulate them or edit them. You can preview things up here in the upper right-hand corner, as well as using these buttons up here to edit. All right, I'm going to take a pause. Does that make sense? Any questions here just on the brief overview? All right, we will get into the meat of things here. So basically, one thing I want to stress is stop motion is fairly simple. Stop motion videos are simply a series of still images. And to show you kind of, how easy this is, obviously, if you've been attending some of our other workshops, you've been introduced to some apps that are designed to do stop motion. And so you can certainly use those to create your video. But if you want to do it differently, for instance, I was at home all this week, and so I didn't get out. I didn't have any of my equipment. And so all I did in order to create this stop motion video was I utilized some paper cutouts that I've made with Jerusha before, and to create the green screen backing that you're seeing that we're going to put our custom background into, I just used a piece of green construction paper. So you don't really need anything fancy. Obviously, you can get green screen kits online and, lighting kits and things like that, and they're certainly advantageous. But also, if you just want to make something simple, all you need is your paper cutouts, the types of things you've been making in the previous workshops, a green piece of cardboard, a green piece of construction paper, and your your smartphone to take pictures. So I just took all these still images with my smartphone. And I ended up with around, I guess you can see 123 pictures. But these still images can be combined to make a single video, which is what we did, which is what I did back here. So I'm going to show you really quickly what the final sort of product is, and we'll kind of break it down. Sometimes I find it's easier to see the final product first. Okay, so I sort of threw some different effects in here, and we're going to try to duplicate some of this in the exercises. The point of me showing you this was just to kind of show you that you can take something like this that started out as a series of still images and combine them into a video. And obviously you can see I basically created my scene with a green screen in the background so that I could put that custom forest scene in there. But first, we want to convert this part right here into a video. So what we want to do is we want to highlight all our pictures. So I've got 123 of them. And I think I've got them all highlighted there. And like I was saying earlier, the workflow, just drag it down into your timeline. I'm just making sure they're sequential. I think they're sequential. And you could do this with any sequence of images that you've created too. Now, right now, if we look at these are just still images. And by default, iMovie keeps an image on the screen for 4 seconds. It also applies some effects to it by default, which we're going to turn off. And I'm going to show you how to do that in just a second. But right now, I believe all these images are selected. Let me just verify that they are. I'm going to select this one, and I'm going to go all the way out here. And I'm selecting all of these at the same time so that I don't have to do this. I think they're all selected. And when you click on this little eye up here at the top, remember I told you there's editing tools up here that you can utilize. Right now, by default, the duration for iMovie is for a still image clip is 4 seconds. It's going to keep it on the screen for 4 seconds. So that's why our total time here is 8 minutes. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this to a shorter time period. So I'm going to drop this down to 1/10 of a second and hit enter. And hopefully that's going to work the way that I want it to work. Okay. And you can kind of see our total time now has dropped to 16 seconds. So I've shortened the duration of these clips. They're no longer on there for 4 seconds. They're now 1/10 of a second, and they should all look like that. The screen, you can kind of see it's doing this thing when I sort of hover over it, where it's kind of zooming in and out. We also want to turn that effect off. By default, iMovie will put some settings on there. And so if we click here where it says cropping, but I'm gonna need to make sure that everything is highlighted again so that I can apply this to all the clips. Right, all the clips are highlighted. You can see that by default, iMovie applied something that's known as a Ken Burns effect to this clip, and that's sort of like a little zoom in and zoom out where you define where the start and end points are. We don't need that. So what we're going to do, we're going to turn that off, and we're going to go to fit. And so what we've done is just applied the full width and height of the clip to each of those images. All right. So we're good to go here. And apologies for the little delay here. Go. So you can kind of see it's going in the direction that we had for the video. All right, but this is still not a video. This is still a series of still clips. If we want to convert this into a video that we can then use with green screen, what we're going to do is we're going to turn it into a video. And all you have to do there is finalize your project. So go to File, Share, File, File, Share, File, and this is a way of finalizing your project. And here you can, choose your settings. Do you want to export video and audio? What's the quality, and so on. And the length of that clip is going to be 16 seconds. And I'm going to hit next and save it somewhere. We'll just say this is the test for class. Hit save. And it'll start cranking it out. And I already have this done, so like a cooking show. I'm going to pull out the finished product rather than have it um, bake away in front of you. But it actually might not take too long. Up here at the corner, this is little time clock is telling you how long it's taking to render the file. So you can get an idea of when it's done. It'll probably open it up once it's done. It's actually doing it pretty quickly, so I didn't have to worry about that. So it'll give you this message when it's completed. So basically, we've taken this series of still images. The steps we took were we dragged it down into the timeline. We shortened the length of each image, and we strung them together sequentially. We shortened it by clicking on the eye up here, and then we took the zoom effect off of it by clicking on the cropping tool here to take the Ken Burns effect off of it, and then we finalized it as a video. So now that it's complete, I'm actually going to take all these clips out now because we don't need them since we have a video. And I already did this earlier, so I've got it imported. But if you were doing it and once you had finalized your video, you would come in here and you would go import media, and you could import your new video into your library and drag your video down here. So here is your 16-second video that was created from a bunch of still images. So this is just another alternative for creating stop motion film. You've got those apps you can use. You can definitely do that, but you can also create it and compile it in iMovie. So I'm going to take a pause here and just see if there's any questions in what I did so far before we move on to the next step of doing green screen and playing around with that.
Hi, I'll just ask a question, bring myself off mute.
Yeah.
I was just curious, so the only way to make that kind of, to put those clips together is to make the file, basically save the file. There's not some like blend or there's not another step.
Right. Yeah.
You would glue them together.
Gotcha. I see what you're saying. Yeah. No, you'll want to finalize it into a video format so that it's a video, even though it looked the same because it was all the images were together. We want it in a video format so that we can use the green screen effectively. Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Great question. Any other questions? Okay. So as you can see, I very crudely found a piece of just construction paper in my house that I'm using as my green screen background, just to emphasize that it's fairly easy to do this. But what we're going to do now is we're going to find a background that we want to use. And so I decided that this seemed like a sort of a foresty type of scene with the pine cones and things like that. So what I want to do is I want to put my character into that scene. But before I do that, I'm actually going to delete. And when you remove something from the timeline, don't worry. You can do that. Your assets are still up here. If you've imported it into your library, it's not going to go anywhere. The timeline is just representative of your edits. So I'm going to drag down the image that I want to use. And this is like 4 seconds of beautiful forest, a beautiful forest scene. And I'm thinking if my video up here that I want to integrate into this is 16 seconds, we need this to be a little bit longer. So I'm going to click on it. And remember earlier where you can click on this eye up here to change the duration of a clip. Since this is a still image, I think it's going to allow us to, I'm actually going to make it maybe 17 seconds just in case. I'm going to add that 17 seconds. So I've made this still image last a little bit longer. It's, it started as 4 seconds, but I want it to be on the screen for as long as what my video is going to be on for. So since that was 16 seconds, I want it to match roughly. So now I'm going to take the little video we just created and I'm going to drag it and I'm going to place it on top. And that's okay that it looks like that right now, because we're going to fix that. iMovie makes it easy to integrate these two. Whenever you layer one clip on top of another in iMovie, that's known as sort of overlays or layering clips. And you have a couple of options here. Whenever you layer one clip on top of another, you're going to see another option pops up here. It's called the video overlay settings, and it sort of looks like this little one box on top of another. And it's going to give you options right here for a drop-down menu. And what we're looking for, you've got cutaway and split screen and picture. Those are other things that you can do when you have one clip on top of another. But what we're looking for is green and blue screen. And when we select that, anything that is green or blue within the picture is going to be wiped out. So it's going to allow us to see through to the background. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And you'll see that's kind of how we got that effect. And let's see where this is fit. And so now we've got our background. See if we need to make any adjustments to the background so that it matches. Oops. Yeah, that Ken Burns effect is on there again, so I'm going to have it fit. Try this again. I'm going to take that Ken Burns effect off. We're going to drag this on top. So once you drag that on top, let's do the green and blue screen. Okay, so we've got our character. So now if we play it, bit of a delay there. You can kind of see we've now put our character into our background, and it was as easy as that. Just selecting the green and blue screen, it wipes out the green background. But that's one way that we can enhance our video. A little long, I can probably shorten it here, and we can trim it back by just dragging it. A lot of the iMovie features allow you to just kind of drag if you want to shorten a clip or something like that. If we wanted to, I mentioned earlier that we've got some little transitions and so forth here. If we wanted to maybe fade to black at the end, we could drag a transition down here, and that would give us a little bit of a fade effect there in the background. One way of doing it. Okay, any questions about green screen? That's it. Very briefly, that's kind of one way that you can integrate your stop motion film and have sort of a custom background. And you don't have to use one picture. You could have a series of pictures. Like I just chose like one like forest background, but maybe maybe you want to integrate some other pictures in there. You could most certainly do that. As long as the top one is green like that and you've wiped it out, the bottom layer will show up.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes,
Of course. How sensitive is it to, how particular about the green, blue, like, are there ranges of sensitivity to, is it just any color green that works?
Yeah, and it's and I will say there's a caveat. It's iMovie, and so it is somewhat automated. You could probably, with some of the higher end platforms, you could be a little bit more specific about the range of colors that it's wiping out. But one thing you can do, let me see if I select it.
It had a softness thing next to
Right.
green, blue. I wondered what that was about.
That's the cleanup tool. And did you see where there's sort of like a little bit of a ghost around him? You can sometimes adjust it a little bit by moving the softness slider. I don't know if it's really going to make a big difference on this particular one, but you can increase or decrease the softness to, like you said, adjust the sensitivity, and you can also
Okay.
use the cleanup tool to sort of, touch up some of the edges. Oops, did not mean to do that. But you can also use the cleanup tool to kind of get some of that ghost away. So that's another tool that you can use as well. So I think that's basically what iMovie provides. I think, obviously it's not super detailed, but it does allow you a little bit of control.
Okay, so with the cleanup tools, you can kind of tell it pieces to define pieces as background.
Right. If you move and it's not the reason, let me see, it's the reason it's not, I don't think it's making a big difference on this particular one, but if you move the slider, I'm going to see if you can see this in one direction or another. Did you see how I sort of got rid of some of that ghost? I had the slider going in one direction and I used it to kind of get rid of some of the glow that was around the paper person. It was very subtle, because I
Yeah.
don't think it's making a big difference, but you can see you can use this cleanup tool to kind of remove little sections. I don't know if you can see if I click too close to it, it takes the whole thing away.
Okay.
But it's getting a little bit of the shadow away there, and that's kind of how that tool works.
All right.
Did that
Thanks.
help?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can take a little break
Just
at
have to
some
play
point
with it. Yeah.
It's kind of like a lot of it's trial and error. Okay. See, any other questions on that? Oh, I should have enlarged it.
I saw it said current theme. How did you get to those options?
Let's see. Try to hide that. Sorry, I accidentally clicked on something and now I'm like, ah. Okay, there we go. Okay, I'm sorry. What was your question, Jerusha?
Just that I see here where I guess it's transitions. I just saw the word current themes, but now I see that it's under transitions there.
Yeah, basically when I'm dragging things down here, I'm toggling between these tabs up here at the top. So like when I'm clicking on my media, this is showing like my media. If I want to access my audio files, I would click here on audio, and any of these elements I can drag down into the timeline. And that goes for, too, if you wanted to put a title slide on your movie, you could drag these down into the timeline as well. They have like some pre-made ones, and that might have been what you were, because they're, I haven't applied any sort of template or anything. I think that's why that's showing up. Did that help?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. Let's see, what time have we got? It's amazing. I was worried that I didn't have enough material, and it never fails. I always overbook stuff. Okay, well, hopefully that's clear so far, just in terms of the basic steps for, incorporating green screen with iMovie, and maybe, touching up with softness or cleanup. So we've got our first steps done. Now, if you remember kind of on the video, I had some text as kind of an intro. And we also incorporated some music. So I think maybe before we do the text, I'll just show you very quickly how to bring music in. So I found a little sort of dreamy piece that was in the public domain, and it was, I think, called Dream Sequence. And any audio that you have saved on your computer, you can either import it into iMovie or you can drag it down here from audio. And basically, you drag these down into your timeline just as you would uh, any sort of video clip. And just so the audio doesn't distract us, I'm going to mute this so that every time I move, it doesn't get really loud. We can always change that. But the way that you work with audio, you actually just saw me do something. You can adjust the overall volume by moving this slider up and down. So you kind of see these two arrows, they show up. You can move that slider up and down to adjust your volume. And you can also be specific about what sections of the audio you are adjusting. So if you don't want to blanketly adjust the volume over the whole entire clip, you can do something where you can add something known as keyframes to your file. So say for whatever reason, just this one little section of audio is what I wanted to change. I could, while hovering over my volume line, my adjust volume line, I can press the Alt Option key. And you see how when I press my Alt Option key, a little plus sign sort of shows up? I'm pressing Alt Option here. And if I click on the line, and there may be a slight delay here because of the connection, what that's doing is adding what's known as a keyframe to the audio file. And all that is like a control point. That's a control point that allows me to be very selective about where I'm editing the volume on my file. So for whatever reason, I just wanted to raise the volume in this particular area, I could, or I could completely drop it. But those are the term to remember there is keyframes, and all you have to do to add one is hit your Alt Option key, click on the line, and normally there's not this whirling, but because of this connection, I think there is, and it'll add a keyframe. Also, if you don't want the keyframe there, you can right-click on it and delete keyframe to get rid of it. So you just kind of right-click, delete keyframe. But these are basically control points on your audio file that allow for selective control. Another thing with audio, if you want to have it not be so abrupt, like you don't want the music to end abruptly or you don't want the music to come in abruptly, you can use this little sort of circle at the beginning of the audio file, and if you pull that in, this is known as a fade in or fade out. So this is basically how you can fade in or fade out your audio. If we have time, I'll touch on, there's some external programs such as Audacity where you can do more detailed audio editing, and then once you've edited it in another platform, you can bring it into iMovie. But iMovie, it's not designed as an audio editor, but it does have a few little things where you can selectively adjust audio or, fade in or fade out with this control. So that's what that is. Also, you may notice as I'm looking at my screen right now, this is only 16 seconds and it's already running off the page. If you have trouble, viewing your screen and maybe you don't necessarily need like a detailed view right away, you can move this slider to the right or the left to control how much of your thumbnails show up on your timeline, and that can be helpful, especially in the beginning when you're doing a little bit of storyboarding. You might not necessarily need to be all zoomed in like I am right now. Maybe you just want to very quickly slap your clips down into the timeline and be able to see all of them in one snapshot. And so moving this slider to the right or the left will allow you to change your view. So that's kind of another little sort of trick there that kind of helps when working with iMovie. So I'm going to just kind of bring this overall volume right now so that every time I move the scrubber, it doesn't blast us out. But that's audio. Then for titles, I'm first just going to show you how you can bring in titles from iMovie. Then I'm going to teach you a little keynote trick that I learned, where you can create your own like kind of text animation or object animation in Keynote and then bring it into iMovie. It's a little hack that kind of helps. So this is, let's see, this title is called Reveal Lower Third. And I'm going to drag it down. You can put your title like at the beginning where it's a standalone title like that. You can do something like that where you put your text, title of my movie, and it'll stand alone. And if I were to play it back, you know, it'll do something like that. Or let's delete that. Another way to work with titles is you can actually just drag it on top of the clip that you want to apply it to. So maybe we want to put it on top of our movie. And up here at the top, you'll see that it shows that it's 5.4 seconds in duration. If for whatever reason we wanted that to be on less or more, we can move it to the right or the left, and that will change the duration of that clip. But again, what we're doing is we're layering clips. We're putting one on top of the other. And so you can kind of see here, that's put the text on top of our film. And we might want to have it a little bit longer than 3 seconds, I guess, if it's a title, since it sort of disappears rather quickly. And so it'll automatically do a little fade in and fade out there. But that's the built-in mechanism for text on iMovie. And I'm going to show you the Keynote hack next, but I want to pause first and see if there's any questions so far.
Yeah, I've learned a lot.
Oh, good. Okay.
This is amazing.
Oh, good. Okay. I know
And
I'm trying to like.
Pardon? Does this work the same way if you're working on a tablet versus if you're working on a laptop, or there's some differences?
Most of the features should be there. I have noticed that sometimes when you're working on a mobile device, they might be slightly pared down. Is anyone working on a mobile device and seeing that there's maybe a little bit of a difference? For the most part, I think the features are the same. But sometimes they will throw in some extra ones on the desktop version. I personally, anytime I'm doing any kind of editing, I find that it's easier workflow-wise for me to do it on a desktop than it is a mobile device. But I would think for some of these basic features like adding a title, adding audio, even green screen, I think you should be able to do that from an iPad or your phone. I haven't used the iPhone app extensively, but I think those features are in there.
I was wondering the audio things that you showed us, because I'm using an external keyboard. Mm-hmm. So it was just, are there drop-down menus for that? I'm having a hard time making the marks. And that's actually something I really needed to do. I had to edit out somebody's dog barking on a conference call.
Oh, so you're trying to like
to
rather
the sounds
than
like
the right click, like there probably is a keyboard short for adding that. I was basically holding the clicking down on my mouse and then holding the Alt Option key. Although, let's see.
Yeah, my mouse is not the best, so I'm like, and so it's FN if I'm using an external keyboard because I don't have Alt on my.
You're you're on a Mac. It should be like is Alt along with your Option? Is it the Option key? Do you have the Option key?
Yeah, I have an Option key and Control. So that's why I was looking and I was like, oh, I can't believe I can't find this, but
no, it should be the Option key actually. So the Alt might not be
Command Option.
All you have to do to create a keynote, or I'm sorry, a keyframe, is basically get your mouse and sort of hover over that line.
Okay,
that
so I get the volume bars.
Correct. the two arrows, then
Uh-huh.
hold down the Option key until you see like a little plus sign show up on the right hand side.
Okay.
Then
Uh-huh.
click again on your mouse, and that should add it.
Ah, okay. So
Did it
yes, it's a
work?
multi-hand. Yep, it's a
Yeah.
multi-hand thing. And then I have to do four of them if I want to like just pull a piece on, say, a
Right.
barking dog.
Exactly. Exactly. Like if you want to really, and you can always like zoom in on that area too if you want it to be, a little bit, get in there and
Yeah,
be a
and I
little bit
can
more
see
detailed.
where it's gotten loud. Okay.
Exactly.
Thanks. I just need to practice this.
Yeah, no problem. Great. I'm glad you're able to get that to work. So let's see. Okay. So, something I forgot to show you when we were talking about audio is where I got that audio from. It's always a good idea if you're creating, little snippets of film and you're using like songs or pieces of music that, other people have created. In many cases, you can find Creative Commons media or even public domain media that you can use. And one of the tools that I use, and I jump over here, if you're not already aware of it, is the freemusicarchive.org. This has been infinitely helpful to me over my years of teaching. I always point students in this direction. It's kind of a way for artists to share their work, and they get a little bit of, people get to listen to them, and then people can remix some of their creative work. Now, with that said, when you do a search in the Free Music Archive, much of this is under the Creative Commons license, so it does have attribution. So you might, if you're putting credits on the end of your film, you might want to give credit to the person who's the creator, and it'll usually indicate whether or not the person, what type of copyright is associated with it. But I like the fact that it's broken down by genres. You can search by genre. I was just very quickly, I was looking for like, I think dreamy music. I can't remember what I put in. And then I did a search under public domain because I wanted to make sure I was safe to use some stuff. So yeah, public domain. And one of these I think was one of the ones that I ended up pulling for this project. So if you find something that you like, you can sample it and listen to it, and you can either add it to your library or you can download it here with this little arrow and download the music file, which you can then incorporate into iMovie. So if you were wondering sort of the source of some of the tracks I found, that was how I found it, was I went to the Free Music Archive. So this can be a useful resource if you're trying to have a soundtrack for your film. And yeah, you just want to pay attention to the different Creative Commons license. Is it public domain? Whether you can use it in a remix or a video. They have nice ways of sorting things out. You can even sort it by genre and so forth. Okay. Let me jump to the Keynote thing because time is moving on. Are any of you familiar with Keynote or anything? I had never really used Keynote much. It wasn't something that I always defaulted to using, and I didn't really hear about it much until I got this Mac. But it is basically similar to PowerPoint except on Macs. It's sort of presentation software. Is anybody on the call familiar with that at all or used it at all?
I just know it from it popping up on my Mac when I first got it as a replacement for PowerPoint.
Yeah, yeah.
I haven't used it much though.
It's basically Mac's version of kind of PowerPoint, but the reason you can use it for iMovie is you can create simple, now I'm not saying complex animations, but you know, without using high-end software, you can use something like Keynote to create custom animations. So one of the things you may have noticed when we were dipping into iMovie was you're sort of limited on the types of text that you can pull into your movie. And maybe you want your text to show up somewhere other than the lower third. Maybe you would like to control it. Maybe you want it to dance around the page or something like that. So, so something that you can do is you can basically create a little movie, mini movie in Keynote that essentially is like a mini green screen video that you can pull into your iMovie. And so that's what this is. So I'll pull it down here so I can show it to you. I created a real short, like 14-second slide with Keynote that I then converted into a movie, and it has a couple of their animation features on there that I incorporated into the movie. And so I'll show you right quick how we did that. So this is sort of where it came from. And all you have to do is basically start by creating a colored background. So that's just simply drawing out a shape and putting a green fill on it and making sure that it covers the entire background of the slide. Once you've done that, so that's step one, draw your shape, get a shape, and give it a fill of green. And this is the closest I could get to something that looks like a green screen background. After that, you can do things like import images or text into it and add animation to it. And I'm going to show you in just a second how you create a little movie out of Keynote. So here's my text. Say I typed that out. I just, typed out text, Pinecone Picnic. And when you select something, you can basically give it an animation. So when you're on this like animation portion here, I've got the lens flare effect on this text. And you can also select like the duration. You can select if it's going left to right. In the build is sort of the build of the animation. Its order is 1, so it's the first animation that's going to take place. And then I put a pine cone in that I created. That's the second one in the build order. And the animation I have set for that is drop. And if I want to change the animation, there's lots of different animations that you can choose from in here. And that goes for the text as well. You can sort of change the effects on things. But this gives you a little bit of flexibility because not only can you put an effect on it, but you could move it around. Like maybe you want it to show up in a different part of the screen. And let's play it and it'll give you a little preview here of what it looks like. So there's our lens flare. And our pine cone should drop in just a second. There it is. And if we're happy with, what we've done, we've typed it out, we put our green square on there, we've put our text on, we've put an animation on it here, and then we've added a pine cone, put a little animation here. One thing that's kind of neat, which I never knew you could do in Keynote until I was playing around with this, was when you export, it's not just like a document. One of the options you have is movie. So in Keynote, you can go File, Export to Movie, and we'll just kind of leave this self-playing. We'll leave it on these dimensions, hit Next. And incidentally, this is another way to make a presentation too. You can make a little short movie in Keynote. Export, and it'll create your movie. So once you've created a movie in Keynote and kind of played around with this, you can then incorporate that into iMovie and take advantage of the green screen effect because it will work on this as well. So let's jump back to where we were before. Delete that one really quickly. that to the front. Take that one off so it's not distracting. Okay, so right now this is on top, and it's still, we've got our green screen, and just like we did with before, we can do the same thing, green and blue screen. And so now we play it, it should, it'll eliminate the green portion of it, and we'll just see like the lens flare come in and our pine cone drop in just a minute. There it is. And so that was sort of the beginning of it. But that's kind of known as like a kind of a keynote hack, so that you can, you could use that if you weren't happy with the titles that iMovie provides, or you wanted to add some additional like features, or maybe, you don't even, you just need some of these effects like the flare. You could incorporate that into your movie that way. So that's another workaround for that. Any questions on that? Did that kind of make sense? Does anybody want to take a minute to try that since we've got a few minutes? I'm not sure if there's anybody working on their computer today, but if you are, you could certainly try that simple effect of creating a keynote green screen and adding it on top of a photograph or something like that to see if you can get the green screen to work. And while
if I
people are,
wanted,
oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just about to say any questions. Yeah.
If you create an effect and then you want it to happen at the beginning and then at another point, is it just a matter of copying and pasting, or do you have to drag down again and
Yeah.
the green screen again?
Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna end this just a little bit first to show you. Maybe this will work. Well, we might want it a little bit longer. Let's do it for 40 seconds. Okay. So if we have like this effect and we wanted it to show up again, like later in the movie, you can copy and paste clips. So you could use the same clip again down here. So you can kind of see, but what's going to happen is if you got two separate clips, you've got the green screen applied here. You're going to need to apply the green screen here as well. So you'll just want to repeat that step here as well so that it happens later in the movie as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can use multiple clips over, and yeah, you don't have to just like use it once. You can use it multiple times. And you can also do, that's something in Keynote. You can also, let me see if I've got, let me pull in some other content. Here. So these were some wonderful videos that Jerusha and her team made of some stop animations, and so I'm going to use this one for this example. I'm going to pull down the lady here, and 5.1 seconds. This is really long, but that's all right. Maybe we'll pull it down again and do it several times. You can also get like images like this and put like a green box in the middle, like this guy on his computer. And if you are working in Photoshop or something like that, you could put a green box sort of somewhere within the picture. And you see what happens if I use the green screen effect here. Suddenly Jerusha's movie is on his screen. So you can do this sort of thing too, where you integrate regular photography with the stop motion film. So you can kind of keep doing something like that. So that's another way you can utilize green screen there as well. Want to glue some of these clips together, you can drag the transitions down just like we did some of the still clips. The transitions kind of come down in the same way. But green screen is kind of fun. You can kind of play around with it. Incidentally, too, we were talking about green screen, but you can also do things like layer one clip on top of another. So for instance, let me move these ones. Don't forget about your overlay settings. When you put one clip on top of another, it automatically activates your overlay settings. And so if you click on the overlay, you can also change the opacity on things. So let's see, whoops, oh, did I not have, there we go. See how I'm changing the opacity on that? So it's there, but it's you can kind of see what's going on behind the scenes too. So you can also play around with the opacity on a layer to create a variety of effects. That layering is sometimes kind of fun too. See. Any other questions? And if you want to slow a clip down, like notice right now, Jerusha's clip is 4.6 seconds. You can change the speed of remember that I said you have different editing options up here at the top. You can change the speed on a clip. Like if I want to slow that down, we can just click slow, and that's going to slow her clip down. But we can also do like custom, where we can define how slow or fast we want that clip to be. So maybe we'll make it really, really slow. So that's sort of another thing you can do with stop motion. If you're wanting to adjust the speed in any section of your clip, you can do that sort of thing. So now we've extended it so it's getting closer to the length of our clip below. That's another little tip there. Any questions? I want to make sure I'm catching what people are trying to do for their projects.
Well, I try to do really boring projects, so I have a boring question, or the projects I have to do are boring. Do you know, can you import in a PowerPoint? Right, so I'm often,
like a
recording a
PowerPoint?
presentation. Yeah, so like you had all those pictures. I was just wondering, could I do, or would I need to make each slide an image?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think for iMovie, each one of those would have to be an image. And I know, yeah, you're probably like, oh, I wish there was an easy way to do that.
Or you can record, I guess you can record your presentation in PowerPoint, and then you can pull it in as a as a movie, then to edit.
Yeah, if it's a movie file, if you can make it into a movie file, then you're in good shape. Other things you can do if you're familiar with all at Photoshop, you can there's something known as you can create movies in Photoshop with JPEG sequences. If you have like a bunch of images that you pull into Photoshop, you can create a movie in Photoshop too, if you have a lot of pictures. But yeah, that would be you'd want to pull in the pictures or pull in a movie. Yep. Not a boring question at all.
From PowerPoint, you can export your PowerPoint slides as JPEGs, and if you select export JPEG, it makes each slide an individual image.
Okay, so then I guess it's kind of a hard way to do it though. I mean, I could just also record, because now you can record it in Mac, where like it can do your picture of you giving the presentation, but then you can bring it into iMovie to edit it, because that's easier editing. fix things.
Yeah.
Yeah, always check those export settings. I was really surprised. I didn't when Keynote was able to export as a movie. I was like, oh, that's pretty neat. That's a quick workaround if you just want a simple green screen effect. Because you can animate not only text but objects as well. All right, let's see. Any other questions or comments or things you're working on?
It is 8:07. I mean, even in this amount of time, you've given us so much to work with. Like, there's a lot of great gems here, especially if you're like me and haven't explored iMovie. This is like, oh my goodness, there's a whole nother world here.
Yep, yep.
I did want to just point out that in the chat, I shared the links for more information about Fast Film Fest, a link to our YouTube channel for inspiration, a link to the library channel, library website for upcoming events, and if you like what you're seeing and want to support the museum, there's a link there to support the museum as well. I'd like to share my screen really quickly. Is there a delay? Are you guys actually seeing it? Okay.
Yes, we see it now.
Just those things that I mentioned. So the libraries, upcoming events under, what did I punch? I can't remember which, because there's several different options when you go to the library for events. But some fun ones: cultivating curiosity, what is hip hop studies and what is it doing at an institute of technology, a curator's conversation for an exhibition. Is that coming up or is that already on exhibit?
It'll start March 25th.
Okay. So some other things, but I do encourage you to explore the library's site. If you're wanting inspiration and thinking about making a film for Fast Film Fest, like I said, I put all of these links into the chat, but there's how-to videos as well as videos that were made in workshops and videos from the previous two Fast Film Fest, like submissions from previous two Fast Film Fest. Submissions for Fast Film Fest are due Friday, March 5th, and the watch party and screening will be Friday, March 19th. And you can check this out on the Paper Museum website, paper.gatech.edu. There's a link there for the Fast Film Fest pages. And if you haven't visited the Paper Museum, we are open by appointment, and you can make a appointment on our website to come and actually see the physical space. So, again, thank you very much for joining us for Fast Film Fest 2021 post-production using iMovie with Allison Falk. Allison and Catherine, do you have any other things you want to share?
I can plop my email into the chat. So if anybody has any, a lot of these things can oftentimes be very task specific. So if you're trying to accomplish a particular effect or have questions, I am happy to answer those questions. And if you want to learn a little bit more too, I offer workshops on Photoshop and Illustrator and other things throughout the year. So yeah, please join us. Everyone is welcome.
All right. Thank you all and have a good evening.
Well, good evening.
Good night, everyone.